basically like, it's like you're knitting a pattern with no pattern, is what you're doing. So just leave it in N because that's just normal, and then you don't engage. That thing is much easier.
Okay, yeah, that's why it was making weird sounds. Okay.
So, to remember. So you want, when you're doing a latch tool, in theory, I always just pull off a lot. You definitely don't want it to cut this too short. You want it to be at least 3 to 4 times as long as what you're binding off. I always just do a bunch because it's better to have more than less. And what you'll do is push out all your needles forward and push these back. So what I'm gonna do is a stitch that goes, instead of on the needles, it's gonna go around the gate posts and then through each one of these. So again, it can go either way. I do think it's easier for me to start on this side to cast on, start on this side to bind off, but it feels awkward the other way, but you're gonna have to be able to do it both ways. So same thing, you just want some like loose yarn up here. If you're afraid to break it, you can always pull it out and stick it on here if you want to, but I always just break it off because it's easier to deal with. And you're gonna go, this one is a little bit of a coordination effort. So you're gonna go around this first outside gate post. So these are called the gate posts. I need to start around something because I'm actually stitching it onto the gate posts. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to hook these together, kind of pulling them apart, and I'm not pushing with this. If I was pushing with this, it would go like that. What I'm doing is I'm kind of pulling them taut against one another, and then with my thumb pushing the needle back like that, okay? So if you push like that, it's gonna fall off. I'm pulling actually a little bit with this one, and then pushing with my thumb that way. So I'm going around that gate post, and then what's gonna happen is when this goes through the stitch, that latch is gonna close, and I'm going to basically transfer, and I might have to do like a little bit of wiggling to get through there. I'm transferring that stitch onto the latch tool. And then, so I push it back with my thumb. I'm also holding this because I need to hold this kind of taut, not really tight, but just, you know, a little bit tight. So I like to hold it kind of like that, and then I can use my thumb to push it. So now I'm going to do the same kind of thing where I'm just resting the yarn in between the latch and the hook, and I'm pulling it straight down to make a little loop. And then I go up through the loop past the latch. So it's a similar stitch, and now I'm gonna repeat that. So now the yarn is already on that side of the gate post, and now it's a little bit more tricky because I just have this little tiny one, and I don't want to pull it all the way out here and make a giant loop. So I'm gonna kind of grab it as it's going by. So I'm gonna just grab it together and then straighten it out. So I'm straightening it out right before, push it through. You gotta push it through until it passes that latch. Now I've got 2 stitches on there, and I'm gonna put it in between the latch and the hook, pull it straight down, and make sure that that latch is closing around that yarn, so you're pulling it through to make a little loop on this side, and then I have to go up, and you might have to hold it here because on the standard ones you don't have this extra little hook on the gate post, and it's easier to pull it off the gate post. And if you pull it off the gate post, you basically ruin the stitch, and it's not good. So just try to keep it on the gate post. So you've got this loop here. I'm gonna go over, and I'm just kind of grabbing it, straightening it out, pushing it past there, pulling it over. So I'm kind of having to do a little bit of a twisting thing. So I have to go up, over, through everything, put this in, make a loop, up past the latch, over and grab it, through everything, straight down, up, over, and I can kind of wiggle it if it gets stuck. One thing that might happen, if your latch doesn't completely close, it could get stuck inside there and then you can't pull a loop down. So you want to make sure, you tug a little bit to make that loop, then go up, and you go over every time. So grab it, pull it straight down, up, over, straighten out, go back. So I just lost that one because it didn't go through. So luckily I can just grab it and rehook it. And it's a little bit harder if your stitches are super tiny. So I'm just going to do that over and over. then on my last one, you'll get the hang of it. This is probably the most complicated thing you'll do. So if you got the first one down, this one's only slightly more complicated, then everything else is easier after this. And then on my last one, I'm gonna make the loop, and I'm just gonna pull it through. So I'm gonna go through here, take this tail end, got the 2 loops, and all I'm gonna do is pull that straight through. Got a lot of extra yarn. You do want a tail, this is a little excessive, but you do want to at least this much of a tail at the end, because what you'll do is sew it on. So now I have nothing on the needles. Make sure you keep it weighted. If you don't have it weighted while you're doing a bind off, you won't be able to do it. So now I actually did a crochet stitch onto the gate post. I'm gonna take it off, and you can see it's that same stitch. It looks like just loops basically. And it should be the same stitch on both sides. So when you look at both sides, slightly different way to do it, but it's the same stitch on both sides. And they're both not stretchy. Do you want me to show you again from the beginning? If you feel good, go back to your seat. Otherwise, I'll show you from the beginning, bind on and cast off. So I'm gonna do just a little one here. So I'm gonna do the bind on again. So like little slip knot. And do you have a clothespin on something? No?
Back here.
Okay, can you grab that for me? Thanks. It is so much easier to start with a clothespin because it weights it down and it gives you that a little bit of a weight that you can pull it through. If you don't have the clothespin, it's really hard to start this. So I'm gonna start between that first and the second one with my slip knot, and I'm gonna go into the hook, straight down. This one's the hardest to start, so you might wanna I'm holding it with that finger back there just to make sure that latch closes. Up past the latch, over straight down, up past the latch, over straight down. Yeah, I'm starting a new one, and then I'm gonna do the bind, because I have to do the bind off again, I'm gonna have to do this again. And then on the last one, I just put it on to that, and then I put this little tail under it and untangle all of this craziness. Make sure you take that off. I'm gonna knit a little bit, and then I'll show you the bind off again. Okay, I'm gonna do bind off. So take everything out of there, push everything forward. I go around the gate post. So there's no slip knot on this one. I just go around the gate post and I hold it kind of tight, and my thumb is free, so I'm holding with my fingers around that finger so I can kind of control the tension there. And then my thumb is free to pull this back, and I'm gonna put these together, pull it back through, so I transfer that stitch onto my latch tool, put it in between the hook and the latch, pull it straight down so that latch closes, makes a little loop under, straight up, and now I'm gonna tilt it, grab it, straighten it, go straight through. Make the loop, go straight up past the latch, tilt it, grab it, straighten it up, wiggle it through, grab it, go down and make the loop, go past the latch, straight through to transfer, make your stitch, past
When you
the
get
latch.
to the last one, do you just take it off the gate post?
You just pull it straight through. So unlike the bind on that you put the loop onto the last one, this one you do everything.
Okay.
So I'm going to treat this one just like I did everything else, and then when I get to the end, I just pull it straight through. That's it. And then that's my stitch.
And then you can just take it off.
And then you take it off the gate post,
Oh.
and then it's done.